Wupa Kawen Wahu Emani, Nuk Kador Naju, Emakasamu Nafapaat, Awuchabu Bemashasun, Nuk Kador Kawum Kalapa Faf, Nukragu, the Kalpa At Talama, Ragabni, Kawenli, Beke de Kalpa At, Anarchy Abat being the fastening, Pat Kawen, Anarchy, Pakador, Nukador, Pa'amu, Nukamu, Hu, Panathominu, Nutshayu, Kawum Awu Bihu. That is in English. Begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all. I am in the love of all, and all love is in me. I am a part of all, and all is a part of me. I am one as all, and all is one as me. I can succeed as a part of all, or fail as an individual person. I can be all that I wish in all, as long as my wish is to stay in all. I am never alone. All is, I am. All can, I can. All does, I do. Who? The guardian, who nothing would exist except by way of him. All right, so this is the Sabian Book Club, and the scroll that we're going over is called The Mind. So what we normally do is we'll read from a portion of The Mind, and then you'll give your dissertation as to what you got out of that. But before we get into that, this is also an open forum question. If you have any questions related to anything, because take us anywhere around the world, then we'll cover that question.
Are you here to cover meditation?
It depends on the questions that we have on meditation. First, where do we leave off in the mind? Does anyone know?
Yes,
I have no idea.
We left between pages 45 and 55. I actually marked it. Give me 1 second. Let me find it for you.
That's a big group of pages, 45 and 55. All right, scroll 13. Page 44. God is 1, 19 times 2 equals 38. Lo, I am in all, and all is in me. 2. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, Isa el-Masih, stated, as recorded in the letters of Yohanan, Bar Zebedee, which is John, son of Zebedee, whom ye call St. John the Divine. The 10th chapter, the 30th verse, I and the Father are one. John chapter 10, verse 30. Number 3. And again, in the letters of Yohanan, St. John the Divine, the 14th chapter, the 9th verse, he that hath seen me hath seen the Father. John 14:9. Absorption. 4. There are no qualities in the universes that are not in the human body. 5. An atom is a complete replica of the solar system. 6. With electrons encircling a nucleus, just as planets revolve around the sun. 7. The atom is a microcosm, small. 8. And everything that is happening in the microcosms of the human body, 9, is also occurring in Ta, also called Orb, Ereth, Terra, Eridu, and Ard. 10. That ye mortals call the planet Earth. Alright, so on this one, I think the important thing, as we'll get into, is that everything that is happening in the universes also happens on planet Earth, and even in a more micro level, the human body. The human body is related to the earth and is related to the universe. The higher you grow in spiritual development, then the statement will become the human body is one with the earth and is one with the universe. And then yet higher is when the very first statement, lo, I am in all, and all is in me. You'll see, I can't even say you'll see yourself as all, because there will be no self. The journey is to feel a part of all. The reason why we have so many individual problems is because of the word individual. We see each other as Saeed, Ahmed George Mason, as Khalid, as Tito, as Ahmed, as Zain, as Marcus, all of these individual units of energy. But each and every one of these individual units of energy have life. this life force is in all of us. The task is to not connect here, but now to connect here. This is where we all link up. And then even this life was given a source to create, coming from all. Everything is in all. Or I should say,
all is in everything.
that is also true.
Yeah.
But, all right, let me go back to what he just said. I said everything is in all, which is true, and all is in everything, which is also true. Marcus, you are in all. And Marcus, all is in you.
Mm-hmm.
That both are true.
Yeah.
All, I hate to use the word encompasses, it makes you think of in, but all encompasses everything, whether it's Yahweh, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Allah, God, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Krishna, Rama, Shiva, Obata'ala, all in all. Now, I'll stop there, bidding on those first 10. Are there any questions from that first 10, or any other questions? I know you had a question on meditation, and you can add whatever question you have.
What scholar wrote this?
Oh, God, that's a good question since you haven't been here. This is all coming from Panabab Yananman, or Yanun, who is known as Dr. Malachi Z. York. Who is Dr. Malachi Z. York? And all of these scrolls you see on the table are written by him. Dr. Malachi Z. York, in his own words, is what you would call an avatar or an incarnation. He says there are 19 distinct personalities that incarnate through him, 3 which are primary. The 3 that are primary are Yanun, Tahuti, and Nengish Zida. Yanun is a Riskian, Tahuti, and I'll go over these, is an Atharu, and Nengish Zida is an Anunnaki. Now, what in the world is a Riskian, an Atharu, and an Anunnaki? I'll start with Riskian first. Riskian, or Razaka, is to provide. And as he says, there he comes from the 19th galaxy called Il-Li-Yun, from where you also get the word Bab Il-Li-Yun, that people call Babylon. And this goes back to the Torah, and we'll go over that in a minute. Netharu is also called, like in books in English, they'll call them Netir or Neteru, and these are your Egyptian deities. Then we have the Anunnaki, one of the most prominent groups that have been playing here on planet Earth. The Anunnaki are simply Anu, meaning highest, Na, meaning 50, Ki, meaning earth. So Anunnaki is those that Anu set in groups of 50 to planet Earth, and it was 900 of them in all. All right, so let me stick with your question. Who was the scholar that wrote these? So the scholar that wrote these are Dr. Malachi Z. York, who says there are 19 different personalities that come through him, 3 which are primary, Yanun, Tahuti, and Nengish Zida, representing 3 different species, the Riskians, the Natharu, and the Anunnaki, all of which have importance in your Torah, your Bible, and your Quran. He has also written more books than anyone in history, but yet hasn't gotten the credit. He's written well over 1,000 books covering every topic as you start opening these questions.
He wrote these?
Yeah. So what you see here is the Torah, and he also said he speaks 19 different languages. So what he did with the Torah is translate it word for word from the Aramaic Hebrew into the English. He did the same thing with the Quran, Arabic being his first language. And he did the same thing with the Injil. That's the Psalms. The Injil is the book of Revelation that was given to Yahshua or Isa or Jesus. And he did the same thing with the Psalms, given to what they call the prophet or prophet Messiah or prophet Messiah King, David or David. And then he said...
Psalms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the Holy Tablets, which came after the Quran, which has Muslims up in arms because he says this was a revelation comes after the Quran, but in Islam, the very last revelation is the Quran itself. And what Dr. Yerk was saying was the Quran was meant for the Arabs and Arabs only, which is why it's based around the sun and the calendar, because if you're on the poles, you can't really pray by the sun because you get 6 months of light and 6 months of daylight. This was meant for the Arabs, and specifically the Quraysh tribe of Arabs.
Question: now each book had its own messenger.
Is that a question or a statement?
Well, it's rhetorical.
All right.
Who was messenger for that book, the last one?
All right, that's a good question. All right, so now the Torah. All right, let me think about it before. All right, as Dave Chappelle says, he found that there's 2 words that you should avoid saying at all costs because it gets you into trouble. The Jews. So let me what I'm here to say, since this is on film. Yeah, exactly. Right. So the Torah, Torah's main messenger is Moshe or Musa or Moses, and its audience were the tribes of Israel. All right. Mm-hmm. Then you have the Injil. Its major candidate or person or prophet is Yahshua or Isa or Jesus. And its major audience was actually the Europeans. And then you have the Quran, which was given to Muhammad or Muhammad, and its audience was primarily the Quraysh tribe of Arabs. Then after that came the Holy Tablets, as Dr. York says, was meant for the African Americans. He said the Africans throughout the diaspora. It was meant for the Africans. But then he says, as of the year 2000, all of it has expired. All of that came from the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, and this Holy Tablet is now expired because we're in a new period of time as of the year 2000.
But no one is, so each book had its own person, except...
Oh, the person of that's a good question. The person of the Holy Tablets was given to him.
To him?
Upon
okay.
Yes.
That's, okay.
For the car, I was asking you about the Black Israelites. You said you'd explain more in class. I'm not sure if you want to do it.
Yeah, we can do it now. Yeah. All right, so as you know, there's been a lot of controversy in the news with Kanye West and Kyrie. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Is there something you want to say, Tracy? All right, so...
What's funny is people call me Kyrie.
Oh, no, really? Yeah. All right, so Kyrie, why'd you make that statement?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, Kanye West had mentioned that he was going to go DEFCON 3 on, he either said some Jews or the Jews. I'm not sure, I forgot
what he said. The Jews.
The Jews, okay. And he also mentioned that he can't be anti-Semitic because he said blacks were the original Jews. Mm-hmm. Kyrie followed that up by posting a a movie that is on Amazon from Hebrews to Negroes. And that particular movie also talks about how blacks are the original Jews. And of course, it got Kyrie in trouble, got Kanye in trouble. So then that brings up the question, were the Jews black? When people, the Jews, all right. So when people think of, quote unquote, the Jews, they normally think of the black hat, the tassels on the side, and the prayers, the wailing wall.
Hasidic Jews?
Yeah, the Hasidic Jews. Yeah, Hasidic Jews.
Orthodox, right?
Orthodox, yeah, Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews. But that's the image that comes to mind when you say the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Christians. What image came to your mind?
The bald-head monks.
You got bald-head monks.
With the hair,
you got
with the hair
Jesus,
around.
all right. Muslims. What image came to mind?
Robes.
Long beards.
Robes, beards.
Mecca.
Mecca.
Yeah.
All right. So what the thing here? All right. So these Israelites, the Jews, in black and white, but the image that comes to mind, to most people's mind, are the Hasidic image, the Hasidic Jew image of the black and the tassels and whatnot. Now, the Hebrew Israelites, they are a black American sect of, they call themselves Israelites or Jews. And if you go into D.C., they're always on the corner in Chinatown,
Yeah, by the
New
Capital
York,
One Arena.
Philadelphia, they're in your major cities. And if you're,
Baltimore.
yeah.
If you're on Richmond Highway.
Yeah.
That.
So and you can see them, and they talk about everybody that walks by. Hey, you white devil, you blah blah. That's the Hebrew Israelites. So you'll see them, and they allege that the Hebrew Israelites are the real Jews. Now, the term Jew didn't begin until the 15th century. That is because that's when the letter J came into the alphabet. So first, there was no term Jew before the 15th century because there was no letter J.
That's why the name Jesus wasn't valid.
Yeah, the name Jesus is not valid either because there was no letter J. That's why Muslims say he was Isa. In Greek, that would be Isus. And in Hebrew, it was Yeshua. But there was no term Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, before that, they referred to themselves as the tribe of Israel. Now, if you remember, how many tribes were there in Israel?
13.
That's actually good. Most people say 12. There was actually 13. There's 12 men, and there was 1 female. Now let me just go over the story, and I'm going to come to your question. In the story, where do the Jews or Israelites actually begin? As the story goes, there was Abraham, and he had his wife Sarah. Her first name was Sarai. And they left their home, which is in Ur of Chaldea, after his name was Abram, left Ur of Chaldea, his homeland, which is today Syria. Then he crossed over the Tigris and Euphrates River into the land of Canaan. Now this is the important part. He crossed over into the land of Canaan, coming over these 2 rivers. The Tigris and the Euphrates. When he crossed over, there were people over here who saw him crossing these rivers. And so they called him the crossover. He was coming with a bunch of cattle and all of his belongings. And they called him the crossover. The crossover is Ivri. in Hebrew. And that's actually what Hebrew means. To cross over.
Is that why they use a cross?
No, I'm saying, well, first, the name Hebrew means to cross over. So when people will say, well, Abraham was Hebrew, but they don't even know why these people who saw him cross over called him Hebrew. People will think of Hebrew as a people or a language when it was the Canaanites who called him the Ivri, and then said the language he was speaking was also the crossover language, or today we call it Hebrew. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Yeah.
All right. So now, this Abram, with his wife Sarai, goes into Egypt. And as the story goes, Sarah, or Sarai, was also his half-sister. They had the same father, different mother. And the Pharaoh saw how beautiful she was and took her to be his wife. But Abram, or Abraham, didn't tell the Pharaoh that this was his wife. He just said it was his sister, which was true. It was his half-sister. Later, when the Pharaoh started having issues and problems, then it was traced because he took Sarah, which was a prophet's wife, Abraham's wife. And then the Pharaoh then talks with Abraham. They squash that. He gives Abraham his wife back, Sarah. So now Sarah comes back over to Abraham, and then before he leaves, the Pharaoh gives Abraham a bunch of stuff, and then Abraham leaves for, well, no, he leaves with, you want to say something?
Before she left, Pharaoh gave Abraham and Sarah a slave, which is Hajar.
Right, and I'm going to come to that. When Abraham left, he was given Hajar, or as the Bible says, Hagar, to be his handmaid, which would be his concubine, or some would say his second wife. Abraham actually had 3 wives, Sarah, Hagar, and Keturah, but you never hear about Keturah. Now, Abraham and Sarah couldn't have a child. Sarah was barren. So Abraham, who got his wife out of Egypt, Africa, gives birth to Ishmael, Abraham's first son. Now let's stop there. Put it here. I'm coming to your question, Khalil.
No, that's fine. I'm enjoying this.
Down here. Now, if Abraham, coming out of Ur of Chaldea, which is today Syria, going into Egypt, which is Africa, takes a woman, whether a slave, whether a concubine, whether a second wife, named Hajar or Hagar, then they give birth to an Ishmael. So you have, we'll put Abram.
Hold up.
Ishmael.
Okay, I'm coming out now.
Now, this brings up the question of the Egyptians. Now we'll go on some ifs. If the Egyptians were black, as is alleged by many scholars, that would mean Abram and Hajar. If Abram was not black, let's say he wasn't, and Hajar was black, let's say she is, that means Ishmael
It'll be black.
would be black. Well, people say half and half, but in black we say you black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because the genetics, it takes longer to cycle out.
Yeah, black dominates all.
Yeah.
I thought the Arabs came from Hajar, and the Christian and Jews
Okay.
came
all right.
from Sarah.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll get to that. All right. So this would make if we're assuming the Egyptians were black, and they were, but I know there's a lot of controversy over that, so I'll say that. Then that would mean Ishmael was half black. Okay. We'll put that there. Now let's talk about when Sarah his half-sister was able to have kids. As the story goes, Sarah was barren, she was old now, she couldn't have any kids. And then she got some messengers. And these messengers came to Abraham and told Abraham that he was going to be the father of many nations from his wife. And Sarah laughed because she's like, I'm old in age, how am I going to have a kid? And then the angel said, why did you laugh? And then she says, oh no, I didn't laugh. They said, no, surely you laughed. And they told Abraham that from his wife Sarah, they were going to have many nations of children. And then Sarah gives birth to who? Do you guys know the story? Yep. Or Ishaq.
Is it the same as Isaiah?
No, Isaiah is different. So now you have these two half-brothers, Ishmael and Isaac. From Isaac and his mate, I think her name was Rebecca. Then you have twins, Jacob or Jacob, and his twin, fraternal twins, was Esau. From this Jacob, let me just take you all through the story. This Jacob came out second. As the Torah says, Esau was the twin that came out first, and after that, Jacob came out. Esau, they said, was very hairy, and Jacob was not. And then it goes on to say that the birthright goes from Isaac to Esau. But Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. And so now the blessing falls on Jacob. And then there's a story in the Torah where Jacob is visited by an angel, and then he wrestles this angel to get a blessing. And he won't let the angel go until the angel blesses him. The angel then blesses him, and then the angel leaves, but the angel changes his name from Jacob to Israel.
Why did
what do you mean by wrestle?
Esau sell his blessing to Jacob?
All right, there's two questions. What do I mean by
Wrestle?
Wrestle. And you said,
why did he give up his blessing?
all right, why did he give up his blessing?
I'm hungry.
Yeah. So actually, that's why. All right. So there's in the Torah it says Esau was a hunter. He was a wild man, they call him. And so he was out hunting, and he came back. He was tired. He was hungry, and he wanted something to eat. And his brother wouldn't give him anything to eat. He said, well. Then he started bargaining. He was a bargainer. He said, well, if you give me your birthright, then I'll give you some food. And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so that's what he did, according to the Torah story. He sold his birthright for some food. Then there's a whole another part where he deceives his own father.
So that's probably the term of wrestling that he used with the angel.
Right.
No, I think
He didn't actually wrestle him. He probably talked his way.
No, according to the Torah, he actually, yeah, I see your point though. Yeah. But according to the Torah, he physically wrestled him.
Oh, he wrestled him.
Yeah,
There's a picture. Not
There's
the famous drawing.
There's a picture of him wrestling with the angel. And the angel is supposed to be with Raphael. Supposedly.
So he physically wrestles with this angel to get a blessing.
To get a blessing.
Yes.
So he forced a blessing out of an angel.
Yes.
Forced one to respond as well.
You mean a blessing or a miracle?
No, it was a blessing.
Part of one as well.
But now, see, now this indulges further that, now we believe in angels.
This indulges further that we now
As in, like, angels that exist as in a higher, state of form beings.
But one of the pillars of, again, I'm trying to stay away from like religion.
No, don't stay away. Just bring it in. Yeah.
But one of the pillars of being a Muslim is to believe in all God's prophets,
Correct.
all his books, all his angels, all his, I don't know what else.
All right. So there's 5 pillars of Islam. There's prayer, salat.
Not pillars. There's also
Okay, not pillars.
There's like one above it. You have to believe in like all his books,
All his creations,
all his all his prophets. You have to believe in Judgment Day or whatever they call it.
All right.
Actually, yeah.
But what I'm saying is,
Because I would like to-
because now you mentioned that, you know, an angel is involved, right?
Yes, an angel is involved.
So it's, what is an angel? It's a higher
Yeah.
form being, you know, that, because angels,
I'm going to come to that.
Okay.
I want to stick to Khaled's question. Let me put that up here. I'll go over angel. But in the Torah, where's he at? Jacob wrestles physically with this angel, defeats him, gets a blessing, and gets his name changed from Yaqub to Israel. And so then when Jacob or Israel has children, he has 12 boys and he has 1 girl. The 12 boys becomes known as
12 tribes.
the 12 tribes of Israel. Then later, when they get into bondage, all the tribes get wiped out, with the exception of Judah. So because of, as the Torah goes, because of their constant transgression and blah 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 blah, all these tribes get wiped out, and only Judah remains. In Judah, there's 2 tribes that mixed in with Judah. One was Benjamin and Dan. These were
Dan?
They're,
Oh, Dan.
No, Dan. These 12 tribes were 12 kids. One was named Judah, one was named Benjamin, one was named Dan. When they got wiped out, these 2 mixed in with Judah, which is why when you talk about Israel in ancient day, they'll draw a map and they will say that Israel was divided. Israel and Judea. However, there is no historical proof or evidence that this ever existed. There is proof that that land was the land of Canaan. But there is no proof that in Israel, today we call it Palestine, we call it Palestine and Israel, and yesterday it was called Canaan, the land of Canaan. And there are artifacts to prove the Canaanites' existence, and there is artifacts to prove that that land was once known as Canaan.
Where do the Canaanites or Canaanites DNA trace to?
Europe and Russia. Well, no, that's not even actually. Mostly Europe and Russia. The Canaanites were white. The Israelites in this land has not been proven to be true. The Judeans in this land have not been proven to be true. However, they present it as though it's true. Now, let me come back here. Isaac. All right, so now through Isaac, let me come to your question. And this goes into, all right, so these Jews, were they black or were they not black? And here is the argument used by people to say that the Israelites and the Jews were black. From the line of Isaac and Jacob, who became Israel and the 12 tribes in Judah, you also get another person, a prominent person. Musa, or Moses. The story of Moses is that after the Hebrews were taken into bondage in Egypt for 430 years, Moses was born, and his Hebrew mother couldn't take care of him, so she put him in a basket into the river. He was later found by who?
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh's wife.
Pharaoh's wife. All right. So now this Pharaoh of Egypt is raising, this Pharaoh's wife of Egypt is raising Musa as her own.
Before though, didn't they test him? Because the Pharaoh was skeptic that he was a miracle child. And they put him through a trial when they offered him the date and the coal. And he wanted to see what he was going to choose. And he burnt himself, like slightly.
That doesn't sound familiar.
There was trials because I think the Pharaoh at the time was skeptic that he was a miracle. The pharaohs at that time were skeptic, and they were anticipating a miracle boy or a miracle child that was going to arrive, and be a threat to them. And it was Moses. When his wife picked him up from the river, I don't know how long after.
No, it sounds like you are. And you might be right, but it sounds like you're confusing the story of Abraham, because there's a story of Abraham in Terah before he left his land in Ur of Chaldea. They were worshiping certain deities, and there was a prophecy that.
No, Abraham got burned, and he survived in the fire. I'm not saying it was Moses. It was one of the trials. I could be wrong. It's just I heard the story before.
Yeah,
because
where in the Quran is it? Because I don't see that.
It's I'll get it for you. I don't know where's it at. But stories that we
look up. Search on like Quran.
Because the pharaohs at the
Moses
time
story.
were anticipating a miracle child that was going to arrive and be a threat to their ruling. And it was Moses.
No, I don't think that's in the Quran. But yeah, check that out because I don't think so.
Was that his first miracle?
Yes, he was. It was.
If it's that,
There was like some of his first early. He was just a baby at the time, and they were testing him. Gave him a date on one end, and I don't know if it was a burning coal or something on the other end. And the Pharaoh's wife was not fond of that idea. The Pharaoh was pretty adamant on making it happen. The miracle was he chose the chocolate on purpose, because if he had chosen the date, he would have been killed.
The date, the fruit.
The fruit.
Yeah, I don't recall that at all being in the Quran. It might be in a hadith.
It could be in a hadith.
Yeah, I don't remember that in the Quran at all, or in the Torah.
I'll post one after, once I find the resource, I'll send it to you.
So in the Torah, the Pharaoh's wife is raising Moses or Musa as her own in Egypt. Now, here's where the color line comes in. If Egypt, as some people call it, Misr, M-I-S-R, its ancient name was Ta-Ma-Re, Ta being earth, Ma being water, Re being sun. If, in fact, the Egyptians were black, and the Pharaoh's wife is raising Moses as her own, then Moses too would have had to have been black, else they would know it was not the Pharaoh and his wife's son. This is one of the reasons why the Hebrew Israelites and others allege that the tribes of Israel, and particularly the tribe of Judah, and particularly the Jews, were actually black and not white. Yeah.
A small question. You're saying that the Pharaoh would not have raised Moses if he wasn't black?
No, I'm saying if the Pharaoh and his wife were raising Moses, as the story goes, as their own, if say we're male and female and we're raising a child as our own, and the child looks like Alani, you're gonna be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on here? So that's one of the reasons.
Why can't we come together, and accept? Why does it have to be black or white? Why is it not mixed?
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Wait, what do you mean? Why does it have to be black or white?
Like the kid. Okay? The kid, came between a father that was white and a mother that potentially was African that was black, originally from Abraham and Hajar, right?
Right.
So the kid.
Wait, no. We're talking about Moses. Wait, who? First, you got to give me names. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Ismail, and I'm talking about how they're saying that
the
the Jews, were supposed to be black, why can't the Jews be mixed? Because it started from a mix.
Who was the mix?
Abraham and Hajar.
No, that's the Ishmaelites. The Israelites come from Yaqub, from Abraham and Sarah. So if you're saying, now the question is, the Arabs, you would have to tell the Arabs, why don't you call yourselves mixed? Because you come from...
The Arabs called themselves white.
Yeah, most Arabs call
So
themselves
Abraham
white.
was Arab.
Yes. No. Ishmael is the father of the Arabs. Abraham...
I mean, Abraham was white.
To us,
all right, so I'm going by the assumption. First of all, I'm saying Abram, if he comes from Syria, which is comes from yesterday of Chaldea, which is today Syria, then it's likely that he was white.
Right.
Now, Hagar, coming out of Tamaray or Egypt in Africa, likely that she was black. This would make Ishmael half black, half white, but Ishmael is known as the father of the Arabs.
Right.
But the Arabs don't call themselves half black, half white.
Sarah was black too.
All right. Sarah and Abram came from the same place, of Chaldea. So the quote unquote the Jews. This is one of the reasons why they say Jews are white.
Right.
But then the Hebrew Israelites and others are saying, well, that can't be. Because if, in fact, Abraham was white, Sarah was white, Isaac was white, Yaqub was white, the tribes of Judah were white, then when Moses steps on the scene, being raised by Africans, but nobody... Wait a minute. So is it black people raising this white kid, or was he actually black? Then there's another part of the story that they argue that the Jews were black. And the story is Moses wanted to get married, and he was going in the Torah. He was going to marry an Ethiopian. So Moses' sister Miriam. Let me put them up here.
So Miriam?
Yep,
Was that his mother?
that was his sister. Let's.
my angel gave me.
Miriam.
Okay, all right. One
So Moses was tongue-tied.
Okay.
Yeah, with stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
stuttered.
He stuttered. Yeah,
And
he
that's
stuttered.
because the first trial between the date and the
I
charcoal.
want you to look up Moses.
That's not in the Bible. Or
It's not. It's
the
not.
Quran.
Yes.
If you do like a hierarchy diagram of help everybody understand.
There's another part in the Torah where people argue that the Jews or Israelites had to have been black. And that story goes that Moses was going to get married to an Ethiopian. And his sister, Miriam, opposed the marriage. And because she opposed the marriage, God, or in that case Yahweh, put a curse on her and turned her hand leprous white. This same leprous white miracle was done to Moses before his sister Miriam. In the Torah, it tells Moses to put his hand in his chest, and he takes it out, and it's leprous white. And the congregation are all like taken aback. Then he puts it back, and it says it returned to its original color. Now, if the original color was white, and he puts it in, and takes it out, and it's whiter, that's not much of a shock and awe. But if his hand was black, and he puts it in, or he or she then takes it out, and it's leprous white, that is a shock and awe. And so that's another reason that Hebrew Israelites and others say that the Jews and the Israelites could not have been white. You want to say something? All right. So now I say that to say this. None of it have been proven to exist. There's no proof, no evidence of the existence of an Abraham. There's no proof or evidence of the existence of a Sarah. No proof or evidence of an Isaac, no proof or evidence of a Rebecca, no proof or evidence of a Yaqub, no proof or evidence of a 12 tribes, no proof or evidence of a Judah, no proof or evidence of a Moses, none.
So how is the legacy this strong?
Now we're getting to, yes, how's the legacy this strong? Now, do you remember when I wrote those 3 things of Talk to your gut.
Species.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Do you remember what they were?
The
There
different
was
the Anunnaki,
Oh,
Yeah,
but tell me what you remember.
the Anunnaki, the
Natharu,
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 Rizikian.
Riskian. All right.
the Riskians. They risky.
All right. So why all this confusion? It links back to the Natharu, the Riskians, and the Anunnaki. Primarily the Anunnaki. Now, there are two, time check.
1245.
All right. There are two primary branches of the Anunnaki. There are
The ones who stayed and the ones who made it here.
close. That's what they did. Let me do it this way. The leader of the Anunnaki is called Anu, the Most High. Under Anu, there is Enki
And Enlil.
and Enlil. En means ruler, Ki means earth, En means ruler, Lil means sky. Now, I'm going to tell you the story, and it's going to sound very familiar. Anu and his wife, Antum, could not have a child. Then, as the story goes, he was visited by another group. The Etherians. But before Antum could have a child, he had a handmaid. Her name was
Hagar.
Sounds familiar, right? Id. And they had Enki as the firstborn. Antum is his half-sister. Same father, different mother. Id was a different species. They give birth to Enki, the firstborn son, the heir. And then after the Etherians visit with Antum, do something with her, then Anu and Antum is able to give birth, and thus Enlil. Now, under the rights of succession, Anu, when his term is up, can then pass it on to Enki or Enlil. But he chose to do it the historical way because his half-sister is closer in blood to him. The rulership goes to Enlil.
This just sounds like where the Europeans got their hierarchy system from, and like.
No, this sounds like the Abraham and
Hydra.
But also like in the Renaissance times. Like,
right.
You know, where the bloodlines
Yeah.
and the.
Right. This is where it comes
This is
from.
where it comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Christ.
story that you see in the Torah of Abraham and Hagar and Sarah is a copy
Oh yeah.
from this story.
So they copied this story.
Yes,
Copied every story.
yes. The stories that you see in your Bible, Torah, and Quran come from this group.
Now,
In
those
this-
species, how do they look? Like the Anunnaki, you know, do they look similar to humans?
The Anunnaki, do they look similar to humans? Okay. So and again, this is all coming from Pa Nabab Yanun. You see there, these are pictures of some of the Anunnaki. Now,
So human features.
oh yeah, the human Noid, yeah.
Human.
So the proof in this story does that come from the hieroglyphics and the.
All right. So now, this story is found in Sumeria on
Tablets.
Sumerian tablets.
Right.
The primary one is called the Enuma Elish, which means when on high. The Enuma Elish is the scroll that talks about the Genesis story, the flood. That same story, only difference is it gives names, whereas in the Torah it might say God created the heavens and the earth and blah, 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 blah. And in the Enuma Elish, it'll tell you that Enki, Nenki, Nenti, Nenlil, Nerishkagal, Erishkagal were there and what they were doing, the experiment they were setting up. those names get wiped out so that when you get to your Bible, your Torah, and Quran, you no longer see Enki, Enlil, Ninti, Ninlil, Anu, Antum, Id, Nergal, Erishkigal. Those, you no longer see those names. And they grouped them all under Elohim, Elo, Yahweh. Elohim in Arabic becomes Allahumma. Elo becomes Allah.
Elohim is in Hebrew, not in Arabic. Oh. Is it?
No, Elohim is Hebrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Yahweh.
So they grouped the Anunnaki group, in one term.
No, not the Anunnaki group. For instance, in the Bible, it might say, the Elohim created the heaven and the earth. And in this word, they translate as, let me break this down. This is very important. This is how mistranslations led people to the wrong train of thought.
So does heaven and hell?
First, let me still stick with this question. Elohim translates as plural. Elo would be singular. Then you come up with this word.
Yeah.
Which language is Yahweh?
Oh, Hebrew. Yahweh. So now the confusion comes in when it says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth and blah, 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 blah. But the English says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and blah, 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 blah. That's not what it says. They left off an S. Elohim is, when you add the yad and the meme, it's plural. Just like the word for sky. They'll say, Sha-ma-yim. This yim makes it plural to heavens.
There's levels.
Yeah, there are levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the confusion comes in because people are now thinking, and this is what the Anunnaki wanted people to think, that there is just one Elo, one Elohim, one Yahweh, and that just isn't true. The Elohim is a group of gods. But now, when you talk about grouping, here's the grouping. If all of us are Congress, and then you go out, and you're representing Congress, you become a Yahweh. And this is in the Bible. You'll see, and the Lord did this, and the Lord did that, and the Lord blah blah blah. Or it might say, and God did this, or God did that, or God did the other. But then you'll have this term where it says, Lord God did this, Lord God did that, Lord God did the other. Three different. At this time, it's talking about a leader of the group, one of the group, and Lord God, or Yahweh Elohim, would be an Enki or an Enlil. But the message I really want you to understand is that it's a group. And that group is the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki are the authors of our Bible, our Torah, and our Quran. None of the characters in the Bible, or Torah, or Quran have been proven to have ever existed at all. None. The only one that has, is it proof or evidence? The only one that they submit proof of their existence, nope. Muhammad. He's the only one. Other than that, none.
Now, if they wrote all those 3 books, why each one of them?
More than 3 books. There's 3 we're covering.
But the 3 main ones, why each one of them has different beliefs? Like they can drink alcohol. They can eat pork. You cannot eat shellfish. You can, like what is?
Okay. All right. So that is an assumption, and the assumption is that, somehow it's different. Now the Torah tells Jews they can't eat pork because they can't eat anything with a cloven foot. So the Torah and the Quran agree. The Bible, the Torah is also part of the Bible, but Christians like to distance themselves from what's in the Old Testament, such as not eating pork, and only rely on the New Testament, which doesn't say you can't eat pork. So they pick and choose. I was going to say something else about the Torah. The Torah of the three is the only book in which there is no life after death. This is why people will say, oh, the Jews are greedy, or the Jews love money, blah, blah, blah. In the Torah, because there is no concept of life after death, your heaven or your hell is here. And so it focuses on making your heaven here. Because in the Torah, there is no concept of life after death. That came with the Bible and the Quran. Did I answer your question? Go ahead.
How do you feel about that?
Well, let me go get his question first.
Yeah, I understand. Another one I had was, you said like the Torah, Quran, and they were based off this, right?
And the story.
Yeah, the stories.
Yeah, yes, that's true.
So, did they intentionally like do this to deceive their followers?
That's an excellent question. And the answer is yes.
It was intentional.
It was intentional. Here's why it was intentional. So now, let me go back. Let's take a walk through time. When you go home and you're searching the History Channel, you know, do History Channel Anunnaki. There's some good stuff out there. One of the best movies to watch. What is it, Mr. Saeed?
You don't want to see that one.
Was it that documentary?
The Fourth Kind. Yeah.
I gotta watch that. I gotta write that down. You mentioned that before.
How about the documentary that was shared? Is that good?
Which documentary?
The Kyrie
Marcus,
Irving
you live by yourself, go watch
Kyrie
it.
I'm
Irving
gonna smoke a fat joint.
Okay. All right. So to Khalid's question, the documentary that was shared by Kyrie was from Hebrews to Negroes, and as that got document, I haven't seen the documentary.
I watched it,
but I can if it's anything dealing with the Hebrew Israelites, I can't watch because they're so full of crap.
and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
half of it starts, like 20% of it is decent, but then it just takes that turn towards there right away.
Yeah, the Hebrew Israelites, because the Hebrew Israelites are going to be saying that, you know, we're the children of Israel and all these other ones are imposters, and there's going to become a time when we're going to cut their heads off and there's going to be blood in the street. Yeah, so
Too violent.
So they're like the fringe version, like extremists?
no, they say they're originals. What do you mean French version?
No.
You're a devil. That's exactly why you're coming with us.
Don't let them hear
I
that.
had a coworker that I used to work with. He had a Bible in his life. He's like, that's why you're the devil.
Yeah, I mean,
Before we take this walk in the park, what do you think? Your synopsis, of what the Torah thinks about the afterlife. So there is no afterlife.
according to the Torah, there is no afterlife.
What do you think about that?
I think the Torah says there is no afterlife. And, I mean, I go with the data, and you have to learn how to separate your inner feelings from it.
Facts over feelings.
Yeah, you got to separate your emotions and just look at the data. Just look at the data and see, because when you can analyze the data, then you start to get a better picture of what is actually happening. And in this particular case, coming back to the question, what was it intentionally done? Yeah. Which is an excellent question that comes from being able to put your feelings aside. Now, was it intentionally done? Yes, it was intentionally done. Then the next question would be, why and who was this intentionally done? Tammuz is an Anunnaki who was charged with coming up with a way to control these new people that were going...
I think Tammuz in Arabic is July?
Yes.
Yeah, Tammuz is July in Arabic.
Tammuz is also a month on the
Arabic calendar.
and the Hebrew calendar.
Tammuz.
Or as they say, the Jews' calendar, Tammuz. This is the name of a Babylonian deity who's actually an Anunnaki. He was the one that was tasked with coming up with a way to control these new people. What am I talking about, these new people? Let's go even further back. The planet was once like this. After an accident, it was tilted.
A major accident.
Yeah. And so now, what is the axis of the Earth?
It's like 87 something.
Nope.
Now it's over 60.
Nope.
Oh, is it pi? The number of pi?
Nope. So now,
23.
2023.
Is it consistently shifting though?
Yeah, it does. The Earth wobbles. So now the Earth is on a 23.5 degree axis. It's tilted. Now before, when we were reading from the mind, how I was mentioning how the human is related to the planet, is related to the universe. What happens on the planet happens to Earth's people. The early people, and we'll talk about them, along your spine you had your major organs. And, as somebody mentioned, you were ambidextrous. You could use right and left hand, right and left foot equally. After the tilt, some people became right-handed and some people became left-handed, and your organs shifted. The heart is no longer along the center. The liver is no longer along, all those major organs are no longer along the center. Some people are right-brained, some people are left-brained, some people are right-eyed. Like if I say, cover one of your eyes and tell me what this letter is. Just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
All right? So now stop. No, keep your hand where you're at. Now look at each other. You automatically covered up your weak eye so that you could use your dominant eye.
Yeah, you see my left eye?
His left eye is dominant. Your left eye is dominant. Everyone else has right eye dominance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just do it automatically.
I just automatically did this because I shoot with my right.
Right.
James Harden.
Yeah.
Harden.
Yep. So that was brought about by that shift. Let me go back to the original question. What was the original question?
Intentional?
Intention. All right. So on these people's planet, these people being the Anunnaki, their ozone was depleting. And they needed to go throughout the universe and find gold. Because gold in the atmosphere reflects sun's radiation. So when the sun hits gold, it bounces back. Which is why they align any shuttle that's going out into space to the moon, they align it with gold.
Same with the astronauts, their show has gold on it to reflect.
Right, to reflect the sun's light. There's a tangent here, which is also why people say America didn't go to the moon in 1969, because in 1969 they didn't know they needed gold to reflect sun from the radiation belt. So that's just a side note. Now, they needed to go throughout the universe to find gold to bring back to their planet to fix their ozone. So when they came here, I won't go into that story. There's another story behind it. But when they came here, they landed and they found some people. And those people were Afath, Reye, Ka-U. That's our language in Nuapi, which is Africans. And they set up in Sumeria. And the one before they even set up, it was determined who's going to go down to Earth and do this mining. And Enki was the project manager. So there was 900 of them. And they had crafts that fit 50 passengers each, thus the term Anunnaki. Those sent from Anu to Ki in groups of 50, because each ship, each smaller ship, had a load of 50 people. Enki and his 300 are the ones that came down and were going to do the mining. Enlil and the other 600 stayed in the skies. When Enki came down, his uncle, there's a whole story, his uncle had beef with his brother, which is Anu, the ruler. When Enki came down here, Enki was talking to his uncle, whose name was Alalu, and said, well, you know, we got the gold here. We need to start mining this gold and shipping it back to our home world. So Enki and his 300 were doing the mining. Then they started complaining that, you know, it wasn't happening fast enough. So then 300 more came down under Enlil, but it was still under Enki. He was the ruler. So Enki had these 600 working for him. But Enki this was a water planet, and Enki is part reptoid. He enjoys the water. So while they were doing backbreaking work trying to mine minerals, primarily gold, Enki was off gallivanting.
And just a quick question: Enki was Ishmael or was
okay, when you combine the story, that would be Ishmael.
Ishmael is Enki,
the
right?
first son, yeah. So Enki started. He enjoyed being in the water, and he started wearing the gold. So then when the other people who were doing the mining were complaining to Enki that the work was too hard, that they're Anunnaki, they shouldn't be doing this, you know, they're above this. We need to have some grunt labor doing this. And Enki was falling on deaf ears, and they were getting hurt. And so they were going to revolt against Enki. And then Anu told Enlil to take over. So when Enlil came and took over, they were going to revolt against Enlil too because they didn't want to do the work.
Right.
So then Enki and his mate, which was Nimki, came up with an idea. Enki said, all right, we will create a new species and we'll have them do the work that we're supposed to be doing. And this is where the Bible picks up in the creation of a man, and they call him an Adamite. And it was Enki, he wanted to use the DNA from the Africans because the Africans were already here. He wanted to use their DNA to create this new people. But in order to do that, he had to get permission from the people, from the guardians of these Africans, and that was the Nataru.
The Africans were here doing what? Just
the original people
just
here on Earth. From the
Aboriginals.
Yeah, I'll go to, that's a whole other story about how the dolphin was sent from another galaxy into the waters, and that
carry the seed.
To carry the seed of life, and then from the waters we came, because the human body is 3/4 water and only 1/4 flesh, so you're actually a water being rather than a creature of the land.
Hence why we drink water.
Yes.
That's why the dolphin is one of the oldest, right?
Yes. And the dolphin also knows every language on the planet. No matter what language you speak to a dolphin in, he or she understands what you're saying. But that's a whole tangent. But the Nataru were the guardians over the Africans, and these Anunnaki reached out to Nataru for that DNA to make their species. And then that's when the Enuma Elish picks up talking about the creation story. Tammuz, talking about the intent, Tammuz took the Enuma Elish story and put it in today's languages, which you call Aramic or Aramic Hebrew, and so that these new people that they were creating would have something to follow, or a method of control. You could do this, you could do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. And it was Tammuz was the author of it. And it was intentional. Now, it was also these Adamites that came from the Anunnaki, A-N-U-N-N-A-Q-I. These Anunnaki created a new species of being called Adam, or Adamites. And this only goes back less than 6,000 years.
And that's what we refer to today as Adam?
Adam and Eve story?
Yeah, the Adam and Eve story
because when you say that he had Enki and Enlil,
yes,
referring to Abraham, Ishmael, and what's the other kid name?
Ishmael.
There's Abraham,
Isaac.
Yeah. So the Abraham came after Adam. So where is Adam's story that when he was in heaven and like he picked up the apple and like he came down to earth?
All right. So that creation story comes out of the Enuma Elish. All right. So I'm trying to address two questions here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, the Anunnaki, when they made these Adamites, they wanted to create a people who was intelligent enough to not only take orders, but also fit enough to do the work that the Anunnaki didn't want to do, the mining of the gold. And to do that, they mixed in this species several different periods, but several different other DNA strands. To create the Adamites, they used their own DNA. So the Adamites would be, they would have some of the Anunnaki DNA. They had from the Africans, Natharu. Then, to make them, to dumb them down, they also use.
And when you say they make a new species, like do you mean like they reproduce, or they literally just?
Oh, that's another good question.
Genetic.
And
No, this was genetic. These are scientists. These are laboratory experiments. They call it in the Enuma Elish Shemti, or lab.
Test tube.
Yes. These are laboratory experiments.
Test tube babies.
Canine, porcine, and
What is porcine?
pig.
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 The cat and the rat.
No, they didn't use a cat. They didn't use a rat. Three different animals. Simian.
Was that when those animals were existing? Prior?
No, it was different periods of time. The canine, no, one wasn't. The porcine wasn't existing yet. The porcine was made later by Amhotep and Zauser in Egypt. But over periods of time, these Anunnaki put this in their species, the Adamites' DNA. The Adamites, if you would say, well, who are these Adamites? Because didn't we all come from Adam? Adam only goes back less than 6,000 years. Africans were here millions of years. So we all didn't come from the Adam. And not only that, when you look at the Adam and Eve story, who knows the Adam and Eve story? Just tell me what happened.
Adam was created. He was God was showing His creation to all the angels. Iblis, refused to acknowledge his creation. Adam was put back into the garden, which is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Adam was advised by God and Eve to do whatever they wish in this heaven, except not to approach this one tree to eat the apple from that
That's
tree.
the only test. He said you can do whatever you want.
They moved forward. Eve was pretty curious about the tree. She kept, mentioning the tree till they got to the point where she convinced Adam to, go ahead and eat from the tree. They ate from the tree. God was pretty upset. God set Adam on earth. Both Adam and Eve were on earth, and life started.
Okay. Adam and Eve was on earth.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I'll take it a step back. Iblis was one of the devils or the Satan.
Angels.
No, Iblis is a devil, I think. So.
He was originally an angel.
Yeah,
He only became.
He told God, like, I can prove to you that I can play with Adam's head to fail the test, and if I do this, I don't know. But he said I can convince him, and I can keep stirring the pot until he failed the test, which is the ultimate test. You gave him to not touch the apple, and he did it, and that's why you're on earth.
Okay. And so what about the kids?
Yes, when they got sent to Earth, they had their kids. I forgot the names of the two.
Adam and Eve had who?
Abel and Cain?
Cain and
Abel.
Abel.
Yes,
Cain and Abel,
and they had two. Later, they had two other girls, females. Cain killed Abel, I think.
Right. Cain killed Abel, and then go ahead.
And because of marriage, because of he wanted the other female, I think, because it was off of who they wanted to marry with.
Wait, where's that at?
What do you mean? Where's that at?
That's not in the Quran.
Or the Bible.
No, that's just story, a hadith, and different than this. It was.
You got that story from me, but I'll explain that story.
Maybe I have so many stories in my head.
Yeah. It is. All right, so let me go back. Cain and Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, right? Then Cain kills Abel, right? And then Cain gets sent away. So right now there's just Adam Eve, and Cain. Then it says Cain is banished and he has to go eastward. Cain says to God in the Torah, and Cain says to God, if I go out there, they're going to kill me. Stop.
Wait. I want to mess that up. But who is Lilith?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Maybe we haven't gotten there. I thought
We got Cain,
Adam
Abel,
and Eve.
Adam, Eve, and Cain.
But I thought Lilith was before Eve. No?
No. No, well, I'm
So Adam and Eve had kids. We're talking about the kids now.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking we're talking about Adam and Eve.
Yeah, I got the.
So, Mr. Moon, wait. Cain was supposed to head west? East, I mean?
Yeah, so we
And
got,
he said they might kill him. Who's they?
right, there we go.
Hierarchy right here, like so. There's Adam. Under Adam, there is Noah.
Oh, that's the prophets. That's the
No,
lineage
that's
of
the prophets. Yeah. It doesn't speak about Adam's kids.
Yeah. Adam's kids is Cain and who?
Abel.
Abel.
What's their name in Arabic?
Habil and Habil.
Qabil and
Oh,
Habil.
yeah.
And so Habil kills Habil. He's exed out. So all that should be left on the earth at this point, according to the Torah,
According to the Torah, okay.
is Adam, Eve, and Cain. Then in the Torah, or the Bible, Cain is having a conversation with God. God is telling him, why did you kill your brother, blah, 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 blah. And because of what he did, it says, God put a mark on Cain and sent him out from amongst Adam and Eve, and he had to go eastward. So one, he had a mark.
He had a mark.
Yep. And two, he had to go eastward. And then Cain says, if I go out there,
But what was that mark?
it never says. It says they put a mark on him. But I'm going to come, that's why I wrote it here because I'm ready to speak about it.
Okay.
Then he says, they will kill me. Who's the they that's out there that will kill him? And then as he does go eastward, he goes, it says, he goes into the land of Nod. What is this land of Nod? Who created it? And how did it get its name? And then 4, it says, Cain took a wife and started having children.
So Cain survived when he
Cain went.
Yes.
And he had a wife and started having children. But the question isn't Cain survived. The question is, where did this wife come from? We got Adam, Eve, Cain. Abel was exiled. God puts a mark on Cain. Then Cain complains and says, they're going to kill me if I go out there. He goes out there anyway. He sets up in the city called Nod. He has a wife and starts having children. The point I'm getting at is there were already people here before
Adam and
Eve, and Cain. This was also an experiment. The Anunnaki, this is talking about how the Anunnaki were, in their 600-year experiment, were creating different types of people and testing their nature. That's this particular test of the Cain and Abel test was they were supposed to present a feast before the Anunnaki, or in there, as the Torah says, before the Lord. And then Cain presented vegetables. Abel presented a slaughtered sheep, and they took the slaughtered sheep and not the vegetables.
And jealousy stemmed, right?
Yeah, according to the story, Cain got jealous. But that's just a story. Again, there's no proof they ever existed.
Correct.
What I'm trying to get to is that this is just a template. The Anunnaki have been doing this because they're trying to put something inside of these particular people of why they liked, why Abel got X'd out and Cain didn't. And so Cain's genealogy or that particular trait got passed down. The jealousy, the envy, I got to get what's mine, the selfishness. That's the type of people that these particular beings wanted for what they wanted these beings to do, wanted the Adamites to do. They want the Adamites to be able to multiply all over the earth, scrounge up these resources, because the Anunnaki has been coming back and forth for these resources to their planet. And they have been, there's another group that used the Adamites for food. But that's a whole other story.
This is a very manipulative way to establish a group of people, to create a group of people, and to have them, like work, but under a different misconception. So they implemented those DNA traits where like the wants, the needs, the selfishness, right? It's all engineered, so like it takes its way.
Yeah, there's many different groups, and you're going to find this out now. Now that we're after the year 2000, you're going to find all this out now. There's many different groups of extraterrestrials that have been coming here, that have been passing themselves off as the name God, Lord, Allah, angels, demons.
What about jinn?
Jinn would be demons.
Demons, yeah.
Now, when you were talking about angels earlier, people say, angels, when you say angel, it puts you into a certain mindset, and that mindset is under religion. If you take away religion and you say there's somebody coming from the heavens on earth and going back to the heavens, then it becomes a what?
An angle.
Hey, Marcus, you're saying it out, bro.
I was saying something different thing. What did you guys say?
Alien.
Alien, okay, yeah.
An angle.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's funny.
Alien, or extraterrestrials.
But why do we say they come from heavens? What is the heavens?
Out of this,
Again, that's a word that puts you under
Religion.
religion.
Correct.
but heavens means like out of this space.
We can say they come from above, maybe.
Well, okay, religion has its own word of these events. It'll call it God, and all of these. But when you get rid of religion, when you put religion over here and take these same events, what you have are extraterrestrials or aliens visiting the earth, talking with certain people, telling certain people to do certain things, and they're going back to the skies. Now in religion, you'll say, oh, that's an angel coming down from heaven to talk to a prophet and going back up to heaven. Get rid of religion, you'll say that's an extraterrestrial or an alien that came, had a contactee, visited me, told me this, and then it went back to the skies. Its vehicle would be a UFO. In religion, the vehicle would be wings.
Or a chariot of fire,
Or a chariot of fire.
which is a UFO.
So that's everything that is happening. You're going to start finding this out now is...
What's just boggling
about
is why do they make contact with one individual? Why don't you just come out and, hey, this is us. We're here.
You sound like Son now, yeah.
Because they would die.
Well, it's just because it seems like it's more time consuming, with whatever operation that you go to connect with one individual and send your message and your teaching to that and have that individual go ahead and pass those teachings.
Well, maybe it's not one individual, it's like a type of individual.
Or a group or whatever.
That certain individual might have the type of genetics or,
where's
mind to where they can do
So
something.
what's their ultimate goal?
All right, so
they just wipe they can just wipe the earth and boom, build a new one. If they have all the technologies to create DNA.
all right, so
Wipe it off.
who is the they you're referring to?
Extraterrestrials.
The higher power, like aliens or Anunnaki or whatever. Why can't they just wipe off the earth?
you gotta tell
Well,
me
first,
which
I
day
don't
you're
want to be
referring
wiped.
to. All right, okay. Here's why I'm asking why you're saying the they, because if you're talking
What are my
about
options? So,
if you're talking about they Anunnaki, and you're saying why don't they, the Anunnaki, just wipe the slate clean? Well, there's a problem with that, and for the Anunnaki, that problem is.
and they just to confirm, they are harmless, right?
What do you mean that they are harmless?
The Anunnaki are harmless, right?
No, the Anunnaki very much are not harmless. When you look at
Yes.
when you look at the fourth kind, that's the Anunnaki.
Okay, I got it.
They're the ones that are doing the abduction, the eating of people, and then when you look at some other documentaries, I forgot.
Who's the Draconians?
Okay, that's a good question. Greer, Dr. Greer, I think his name is. He also talks about he has a lot of videos out on YouTube.
And they look like this.
Wait. He talks about the Anunnaki. That's Dr. Greer. Now, the ones that look like this, I think it is on Dr. Greer's documentary. Oh, I have to find a documentary. There's one guy. He's sitting down. He's a, I don't know what his title is, but there's a girl that's interviewing this guy, an older white guy, and he's telling her about these extraterrestrials, and then he says that they're black, and she says, oh, so the extraterrestrials that you all have been observing, that, you know, they're dark skinned. He said, no, I didn't say dark skinned. He said they're black. Black is what he said. So
like black like that?
Yeah, black like Sudanese
like your
black. Yeah, black.
Like almost like transparent.
No, like blue black.
Like blue.
No, as in like very hard Africans. Like
yeah, if you look at the Sudanese,
like the movie X-Men.
Zimbabwean.
Yes.
Like there's some people that are so black they have like a blue tinge.
Yeah.
That's blue. Yeah, blue black.
And they have like kind of like curly, but what is it? Like kind of like curly hair.
Well, I don't know about the hair texture, but I'm speaking about the skin color. It has like a blue or purplish tone. And then he's talking about the extraterrestrial that they've seen and observed are, as he called it, quote, black, and he said they stand over 7 feet tall. So going to your question, yes, the ones that he saw looks like that.
And going back to the question, why can't they just wipe out?
Now, going back to why they can't is because the Anunnaki are the ones that are responsible for the Adamites. The Natharu are responsible for the ones that are African.
And they were here before.
Here before. But even it doesn't matter if they were here before. The Anunnaki are responsible for the Adamites. There are more than Adamites on this planet. So if the Anunnaki starts trying to wipe out, now you got a war of the gods. Or because you also have the Hindus. You got Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. They're also come into play, and their Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about that war. It talks about the war of the gods, and it was that war that tilted the earth from 90 degrees to 23 degrees.
That war was catastrophic. Like it was depicted, you know, the way they had like flying houses. You know, it was shaped like a house, but it was so nuclear and it was so damaging. You know.
Right.
Just the guy. I'm going back to Jacob, Yakub. Is he the one who they refer to as like Dr. Yakub?
Okay, no. So now, that's a good question. All right, so now what he's referring to is from Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yakub, and as Elijah Muhammad says, Yakub's created devils. So in that story, Yakub created... Oh, let me see.
He created like Caucasians.
Yeah, he created Caucasians, but I want to do the story justice. I'm not going to speak on it, so I can do it. I'll just summarize it. Yakub is responsible for the creation of the white race, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was he wasn't the founder, who was one of the leaders of the Nation of Islam.
Oh, he wasn't the founder?
No, the founder was actually Fard Muhammad, who he calls Allah in the person.
And when was he born? Like way back?
Well, no, Fard Muhammad is the one that Elijah Muhammad says was Allah in the person. Do you remember that? Elijah Muhammad always says, I give praise and something to Master Fard Muhammad. And Farrakhan opens up all of his speeches with Master Fard Muhammad.
Was that an actual person?
According to Panabab Yanun, yes. It was not only an actual person, he was a con man. So,
right.
There's a whole history behind that, so that's a whole other story.
And I think a good point to point out, if you can see the hierarchy here, if Muhammad came from Ismail, so it's got to be like at least many thousand years.
Of years, yes, that's true.
So what happened? Like how can Ismail get a son and raise him for like 4,000 years?
Right, yeah. So the reason why you see those rows, that represents time. Like this blue one,
right,
is some time.
But you can see here, like these came from here, came from here, came from here. But then you see, like you go to Ishmael, there's like.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you how. Yeah, because where's Muhammad's mother and father? Yeah.
But even if I know the whole Nation of Islam thing is a con, and like.
Well, it's not really a con.
I'm about to say, because if he was a con man, he definitely had some type of.
So you're
He was definitely tapped in with some source to able to,
All right,
to get that much.
So, what is your question? Tell me what your question is.
Well, my original question was just is the Yakub the same guy that they're talking about?
All right. So now let me answer what you're speaking to. Master Farad Muhammad, as Elijah Muhammad says, stayed with Elijah Muhammad for 3.5 years and then disappeared. And in that time, Elijah Muhammad was able to resurrect the entire nation. There's no black man in America that has done more for black people than Elijah Muhammad. He took rapists, he took prostitutes, he took pimps, and made them respectable people.
Yeah.
And from Elijah Muhammad, you got Farrakhan, you got Clarence 13X of the 5% Nation, you got Clarence 13X, you got Farrakhan, Clarence 13X, Wallace D. Muhammad,
Talking about Malcolm X, right?
Yeah. No, Malcolm X was Clarence 13X was the founder of the 5%ers. That's Erykah Badu, P. Diddy, most of them spit 5%er doctrine. And then but all of that came from Elijah Muhammad.
So I know like a lot of groups like Mobb Deep, Jay-Z were talking about like Dr. York.
Yeah. Yep.
And like.
Hey, what about Dr. Khalid Abdul
Dr. Khalid.
Yeah.
That's you, man.
Did you mention him? I didn't hear. Was he part of Elijah Muhammad?
Yeah, Dr. Khalid was under Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan.
No, they said something about Jews too.
They said something about what?
The Jews.
Oh yeah, the Jews hate Farrakhan.
Of the black community?
Well, that's the whole beef between Muslims and Jews. But what I'm trying to get to you, what I'm trying to do is get you above.
He's trying to get us above religion.
Yes, you got it. Because the source of it is these extraterrestrials. And the reason Dr. York talks about how when he came here,
to the U.S.
No, to this planet. Yeah, when he came, that's the whole story. But I don't want to give you half truth. All right, let me go back. Dr. York.
Dr. York.
When Dr. York came here, when Yanun came here, and joined his soul to, her name was also Miriam, into her womb to Malachi's. When he came here and then started teaching at the age of 19, that's when he first wrote the scroll you're reading now. When he was 19, his first scroll. And he was teaching people about what was really going on in the cosmos, but people weren't ready. People wanted to know about Muhammad, or about Jesus, or about Moses, or about religion. So he had to table what he was sent here to teach, and then teach you what you wanted to know until you were ready for what he was ready to give. And so that's why, we got books on the Christ series, we got books on the Islamic series, book on the Hebrew series, and our different name changes from Ansarullah to Nubian Islamic Hebrews to Holy Trinity Seed Baptist Church. It was covering all the things people wanted to know about religion.
Slowly conditioning your mindset, to the greater truth.
No, to get that spark turned on, to make you ask greater truths questions. Because as long as you don't know the language, like as long as you're reading English, you're going to see God and Lord.
Yeah.
But then when you see Elohim, and Elohim is plural, then the mind says, wait a minute, why isn't this gods? And then your mind says, wait a minute, who are these gods? Now
the word, the linguistic unlocks certain chakras and
yes,
what frequencies.
And what's the link, in Islam religion or the Muslim side that they say God has 99 names?
99 attributes, 99 problems, but it changed. So the link is those in the Anunnaki. Each Anunnaki has rank. And there's like a rank 20, a rank 50. It sounds like a video game. They have ranks. And those ranks are also attributes. And Nu would have the highest rank and the highest attributes. Or in Islam it would be Allah and his 99 plus 1.
Okay. When are we going to end? Because I could do the cake because we're over time.
Oh, we're over time. Okay, yeah, alright, so ending now. Are there any parting questions?
What would the gods think now of how the world is going? Like, what's happening right now?
What's happening right now is you're at a. All right, I'll make this short. We're at a change.
Let's say clean up.
Well,
Cleanse. It's a cleanse.
So I think you said it before, that's why COVID happened and like we saw a decrease in the population.
All right, so Khalil, what was your question again?
What would they think of the world now?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Is it how they planned it,
Right.
envisioned it?
So, and the clock goes this way.
Counterclockwise.
So there are cycles of time. We are what they call, this planet is called by them, the extraterrestrials, Sector 24. Our time is based around a 24-hour clock. Our circumference around the Earth is 24,000 years. The 24th molecule, I think, is chromium, and that's one of the elements within our body. Now, in this cycle of time, there are different deities that rule that cycle of time. This particular cycle of time that we're coming out of is a 6,000-year moon cycle that ended in the year 2000. And so now we're starting a whole nother 24-hour clock. And in order to do that, the beings that ruled in this cycle of time, the Adamites, their time is ending. That's why things are going haywire. And the planet is actually shifting like an onion. There's going to be a lot more earthquakes. The polar caps are going to melt. The seawater is going to rise. East Coast is going to be gone. Southern Florida is going to be wiped away. All of this has to happen. It's going to happen before 2030, and it's going to be an asteroid that is already on its way. It is going to hit the Earth, according to Dr. York. As he says,
Before 2030.
before 2030.
Nice.
An asteroid is going to hit the Earth. Millions are going to die, and but it's going to be a healing. People are going to start to come together then. He was saying this thing about racism and all this division, that's going to put an end to it. When that asteroid or meteorite, whatever it's going to be, is going to hit.
So are they tracking that meteor?
I was going to come to that. Interestingly, I don't know if you've seen it, me and Tito were looking at it, where two asteroids were coming close to Earth, and NASA just launched a
deflection.
Yeah.
The new system that they got.
That's because they know there's something bigger on the way.
Yeah, but they just don't tell us.
Yeah.
You know that it's on the way.
So I should be basically. I gotta go back to the Midwest, Northwest.
Right.
Stay out there.
Right.
Well, I don't want to get hit by this.
Wait, you know where it's gonna hit?
No.
He said, "Oh, what it
How does he know it's coming, but he doesn't know where it's going to hit?
All right, I can tell you
Does
what
that make
Dr. York
sense?
told us.
Okay.
Dr. York told us.
Oh my God.
He had three. He always had three visitors when he was young. They were Greys. They were named Creel, Alamar, and Sa'at. And Creel and Alamar and Sa'at told him that this asteroid was coming. They call it the destroyer. It's on its way. And they showed him, like in a hologram, what was going to happen. And Dr. York asked them, can it be changed? What can we do to change it? And then he says, these three Greys, they looked at each other, and then they looked back at him, and he says that's when he knew it couldn't be avoided. And then they told him not to get down or depressed because there's still things that he needs to get out to prepare his people. But that's not just Dr. York, there's other people around the world who have this data.
Were they like regular human beings? Or?
No, Greys. Greys have a certain look.
How did they come to Earth?
The Greys?
Yeah.
The Greys travel, like when you hear about Roswell, New Mexico, and the ship that got shot down, those are Greys. When you hear about UFOs, most of the UFO sightings...
Did they track or did they detect that there was a UFO landing on Earth?
Who's they?
The U.S. or anybody, NASA or anybody?
Oh, NASA hasn't said it yet. Okay, what NASA has done is they just deflected. There were two asteroids coming. One was bigger than the other, and they targeted the smaller asteroid. They wanted to see if they could launch a missile from Earth and deflect the trajectory of an incoming asteroid, and it worked. But now the asteroid that Dr. York is talking about, they haven't said anything about it. Dr. York said it's going to hit before 2030, and it's a game changer.
What's crazy?
What I'm saying is the three people that who come and visit,
Grays, Creole, Alma, and Saad.
they travel with the a
Entourage?
ship or whatever.
Oh yes, that's true.
So if that ship landed on Earth somehow, how come NASA never detected it?
Oh, there's a lot that NASA doesn't detect.
Yeah.
There's not only ships coming from outside the Earth to the Earth.
Coming under
there's
the
ships
sea.
that are based inside the Earth. There's ships that are inside the water and they travel outward. There are beings that live here inside the Earth. That's why you got the first UFO sighting in 1947. Well, that's when Roswell crashed. Yeah, the first sighting, I think, yeah, it was. It started with Roswell. And that's because in 1945, when the U.S. dropped those 2 atomic bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it cracked the Earth. And there's beings inside the Earth. And they came outside the Earth to see what the hell was going on.
I was sleeping.
Yeah.
Columbus saw it. Right?
Yeah, but there's... Huh?
Columbus saw, when he was on his voyage, he saw an alien come out underwater. It was like glowing, like a little orb. I don't know.
I didn't have
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
There's actually a story when Columbus found the Americas. There was a meteorite the same day. In like the
when Columbus did what?
When Columbus like landed or whatever,
Okay.
like during his voyage, there was a meteorite at the same time. And
That
then-
crashed?
Yeah, and you know meteorites were used as prophecy or something crazy.
But yes, there's many different there's people there's beings coming here every day. As a matter of fact, there's people being abducted every day for food.
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
There's
have a
missing
quota.
peoples.
Huh?
Missing peoples.
Yeah, missing people from all over the world.
The corn mazes too, right? The corn mazes.
Oh, you're talking about?
Especially in the Northwest, Midwest.
No, you.
The
Crop circles. Crop circles.
Crop circles.
Yeah, crop circles.
Wait, those are real.
Those are real.
Yeah, those are real. Yeah. That's a whole other. We can't even go into that.
Yeah, that goes into like magnets and.
But
force fields.
so we'll end there. But
Okay,
as you
yeah.
can see, this is the stuff that this particular
It's very
class
interesting.
talks about.
A lot of unpack.
And as Dr. York says, don't believe me. Check all of this out for yourself.
What are some good resources you recommend?
One is the fourth kind.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, dear moon. Happy